And welcome everybody to the Be Real, Get Real podcast brought to you by Women's Prosperity Network. And today I have the privilege of introducing you to Cynthia Straus, and we're going to be talking about from the heights to the streets and then back again. Feels like a familiar journey for many of us. Welcome, Cynthia.
Good to see you, Nancy.
I am grateful
Very
for
happy to be here.
Yeah, me too. Grateful for you to be here. And thank you for being open and willing to share some of your story to support others and, traveling that road and maybe getting through it a little bit easier. For those listening in, let me share a little bit about Cynthia's background, and then we'll dive into today's conversation. Cynthia Straus is a life protection specialist showing individuals, entrepreneurs, and small business owners how to protect their lives and their assets and build wealth for the future. So listen up, everyone. This is good. She's the owner of the Straus Agency, representing over 20 A-rated companies to provide her clients with the best products and services available. Her passion comes from her own experience having taken care of her mother, which depleted all of her mother's savings, being hit by the financial downturn in 2008, 2009, like so many of us, me included, and her husband's near-death experiences. These all increased her awareness of the need that we have to be prepared for these unexpected events in our lives. She capitalizes on her experiences to share with her clients the ways to avoid these situations in their own lives. She grew up helping her father with his business, providing life and disability insurance to groups in the mid-Atlantic states. She's expanded these services to include access to legal services, home care, and data protection, all really important things these days. She's passionate about helping people put services, procedures, and policies in place to protect themselves and their families. So welcome, Cynthia, and thank you for what you're doing, because you've taken on with passion getting people to do something they don't like to do. Right? It's not hard. Like, it's Friday, I'm gonna go check out all my life insurance policies. It's not what we want to
do. Right, exactly. Well, unfortunately, most people, they hear life insurance and in their head they're thinking death insurance. Mm-hmm. And of course, who wants to think about death? But actually, nowadays, a lot of these policies have living benefits. So they don't only protect you in the event of death, they also help you in case you have an illness. But there are certain vehicles that can actually be structured in such a way that you can set them up almost like a savings account or like a retirement account. So
that makes it easy for you. Right. Awesome. So let's dive into a little bit of the background, because you've been through a lot, my friend, to the heights and the streets and back up and down and all around. Right. So share with us, some of what that experience was like, taking care of your mom, what happened with your husband. Let's just share with us about that.
Sure. Back in 2003, my mom had her own house in Tamarack. My husband and I and our 3 kids, we had our own, and many animals, had our own home in Coral Springs. We decided to sell both those homes and buy one large home. We had a 6-bedroom house in Coral Springs that we ended up buying, merging both of our families so that my mom could live with us. So it had a master suite, so she could have that whole side wing of the house. And we had round-the-clock care for her. And she ended up living till 2008. And by that time, this was costing, at the minimum, it was $80,000 a year that we were putting out. And I came from a fairly, an upper middle class family. My mother had quite a bit, at one point she even said to me, "What does it feel like to know you're going to be a rich woman one day?" Well, that did not happen because by the time she passed away, even though she had a long-term care policy, but that only lasted for 3 years. And those were 3 years when she was still living in Tamarack. Now that I look back on it, I feel like she almost started using that too soon. But, you don't know that at the time. And And so she outlived the long-term care policy, and we were just basically going into her savings to pay for all of this care that she needed.
Right.
And I don't begrudge her that.
Yeah, yeah. For
You know,
people to come in and take care of her while you're working, your husband's working, you're taking care of your
exactly.
family and all of that. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And so by the time she passed away, there was very little left. And then on top of it, that was 2008. I was working as a budget coordinator, production coordinator for Levitt and Sons, one of major home builder, one of the oldest home builders in the country, and it went bankrupt. Right. So I actually lingered on. It went from a company of about 500 people, dwindled down to 20. And went through certain name changes and machinations. And then one day they called in two of us and they laid off. They made it 18, and I was one of the people that got laid off in 2009.
Wow.
So I went to a fairly well-paying job. Fortunately, I did find another job fairly quickly, but it paid me a lot less than what I had been getting paid. And my husband went through similar things with his work. So we went through a very lengthy process after that of, we went through not being able to pay our mortgage. We went through battling, getting a lawyer and battling the, mortgage company, trying to refinance it. Actually, when we stayed living in the house for quite a few years after all of this happened, but it was all precipitated by what happened in 2009. And eventually we did lose our home. And I, ended up moving into a 2-bedroom condo, which I'm actually very, very happy.
Well, that's good. We don't know why some of the
I really love the density. It sort of forced that to happen to me, but I really love having the 2-bedroom place with, it's very bright and light, and I like minimalizing. So that I really enjoy it. It's actually something I've wanted to do. So
it came in a very, it came in a strange package, right?
Right. Exactly.
It came in a strange package.
So
So how do you, this is a personal question for you, dealing with your mom, dealing with the stress related to what went on, with the house, with losing your job, with your husband going through similar things, your husband having these near-death experiences, which we haven't touched on. How do you, Cynthia, maintain your health and sanity through these things? What are some things that you do to help keep you from getting really depressed? Or maybe you did get really depressed. I don't know.
I tend to not be an anxious person. I'm not saying that I never had moments of anxiety. Of course I did. Yeah. But I seem to be less anxious than most people. There is a scripture in Philippians that I like to go to, which when I say it, it actually helps me to calm down. I guess it's like meditation for some people, but be anxious for nothing, and that the Lord will be with you and comfort you, and he's always there for you. And that, I say that scripture in my head, and it just
calms you down, because you're not alone. That's what you're recognizing, like, be anxious for nothing, the Lord is with you. And when we can remember that gives us actually the ability to source solutions for whatever's going on, or be open to them. Because if we're all in, oh my God, this is terrible, like, we can't solve, I think Einstein has a quote that says, you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. And I would actually venture to say that what he means by that, in my interpretation, is the mind that's in the problem can't create a solution. We have to get to a different, feeling space and energy space. Anxiety doesn't solve anything.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So thank you.
When even as a kid, my mother had that little placard of I'm going to end up butchering the saying, but it's, to know the difference between, the things that you can change and the things that you can't change.
The
And
serenity prayer, the serenity
yes.
prayer. Yeah.
So I grew up with that, it was like on a placard in my home, and that has always stayed with me.
Good. So you've had some good bones behind you to support this. And, let's look at what's happening today in the world. We need to be able to feel okay. We might not be dancing in the streets right now or dancing in a club, but we need to be able to feel okay and accept what's happening so that we can operate from this place instead of just being mad that things are happening. That doesn't do it. Yeah.
No, no, definitely. Well, what I find interesting too is that you hear I don't watch as much news as I used to because it is so negative, but I still want to know what's going on in the world. But when I look around in my actual world and I walk around in my actual world and I relate to the people that I actually know, we're really doing okay. Mm-hmm. So I know that there's bad things going on out there, but I think for most of us, it's really okay on our individual level.
Yeah, that was a great
my perception.
Yeah, I love it. So let's transition as we're getting ready to wrap up. These conversations always go so quickly, and thank you again. Thank you for everybody who's watching. I trust you found some value so far. Talk about how you transitioned with the Straus Agency to provide these services. How did that shift come about for you?
Well, I actually started the Straus Agency about 5 years ago. Even though I grew up, my father was involved in insurance, and I used to have my friends and I used to help him doing mailings, putting stamps on letters and all of that. I went away from that. I actually have a degree in music therapy, and I haven't done that in many years. I've done a variety of different things, and before I got into insurance, I was actually doing more accounting type work, doing accounts payable for various companies. But I was always looking for something to do extra, and a friend invited me to a meeting one night, and it turned out it was about becoming an insurance agent. And I went, yeah, I sort of have this background from my history in it. I know it's a valid thing that people need, and I want to help people. And so I got involved about 5 years ago. I got my license so that I could sell life insurance. Before that, I had already been involved with Legal Shield, so I also help people make sure that they get their legal services in place through that. And that's how I got started with it. I'm motivated, passionate about it because, as we touched on, my husband has gone through these life-threatening situations, and he used to say in the past, oh, I don't need to get separate life insurance, I get it through my work. And well, then he ended up getting very sick, so sick that he was actually on dialysis for a little while. And then when he went back to his job, he went back for about a month, but he really wasn't able to perform up to snuff. So they ended up letting him go. Well, of course, then he ended up losing that life insurance.
And now he's not.
And then when we went to get him life insurance on our own, we were able to get a policy, but of course we're paying well over $100 a month for a policy that only has $25,000 face value.
Wow.
As opposed to if he'd gotten insurance, his own insurance, not through work, when he was in his 30s or 40s, we would have had a policy for $200,000 face value, whatever, for, $40 a month or something. It makes such a difference.
Well, and thank you for bringing that up, because especially like what's happened to you when your company that you work for went bankrupt. If we only rely on somebody else to provide for us, there's a possibility that we'll get, messed up, along the way. So even getting a small type of policy that you own, that you're, responsible for, that you control, highly, highly recommended. That's great.
Yeah, exactly.
my
Well, the
goodness.
way we put it is that when you have it through your employer, it's like you're renting insurance. You
Ah,
don't own it.
yeah. Very good. Good.
Yeah. It's like, hey, I mean, that's great. I mean, certainly if you can get it through your employer, more power to you, get that, but get some also that you own yourself on top of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's
Mhm.
fantastic. Cynthia, I'm going to wrap us up and say thank you for sharing of yourself today so openly and giving us all the opportunity to take a look at what can I do now to protect against things, unexpected things that I don't want to think about them happening, but better to think about them now and prepare for them than to be thinking about them when they happen and be unprepared. So
Right,
thank you.
right.
Thank you. How do people get in touch with you?
They can either go to my website, which is strausagency.com, and that's Straus with just one S at the end of Straus, or they can email me at cstraus@strausagency.com. They can call me at 954-448-3321. If you do any of those things, I do have a free checklist that I would love to send anybody that emails me. It's a emergency preparedness checklist
Wonderful.
booklet that I put together. And anybody that responds from watching this podcast, I'd love to also send them my new book that I've written. I was just looking for it. Retirement Planning for the Self-Employed. So if anybody would like to get
That's really good.
a copy of my book and the checklist, just email me. If you go to my website, there's actually a place where you can click on free guide and you'll get the checklist automatically if you do it through my website.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you. I love the new book idea that you've written because that's important.
mhm,
Yeah, beautiful.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Have an awesome Friday. To all of our guests out there, thank you for joining us and sharing and being a part of the Be Real, Get Real podcast because you're here. I know you're real. I look forward to being with you again. Until next time, make it an awesome, amazing day. Bye, everybody. Bye, Cynthia.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.